Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome with another video tutorial for math grade 2. Topic is approximating mass. In our last video we learned how to approximate mass. In this video inshallah we will learn a little more detail of approximating mass. To understand how to approximate mass, let's first learn the rules for that. The first rule is, if the pointer of the mass scale is halfway between two numbers, then approximate mass will be equal to bigger number. Let's suppose we have two numbers that are 0 and 1. Now halfway between 0 and 1 will be 1 over 2. If the mass scale points at 1 over 2, mean it is exactly on 1 over 2, the scale shows that it is pointing 1 over 2, then when we will write the approximate mass, it will go to the bigger number, and now the bigger number is 1, so I will say approximate mass is equal to 1 kg. For example, if we have the number 1 and 2, so halfway between 1 and 2 will be 1 over 2. It is 1 and half. So if the mass scale points 1 and half, so it is exactly halfway between 1 and 2. So the mass will approximate to the bigger number. It will go to the bigger number. So approximate mass will be 2 kg. Same way, if I have the number 2 and 3, so the halfway between 2 and 3 will be 2 and half. So if the mass scale pointer points 2 and half, so it is exactly halfway between 2 and 3, so we will say the approximate mass will be, in this case, approximate mass is equal to 3 kg. So now I think this rule should be clear, that if the perimeter of the mass scale is halfway between two numbers, then approximate mass will be equal to bigger number. For example, this mass scale is showing the reading exactly on the number. So no need to approximate that because it is already exactly on the number. So approximate mass will be exactly equal to that number. But let's suppose if it is exactly halfway between this number 1, this is number 1, and this is number 2. So if the point scale will point at 1.5, this is 1.5, then we will say it is exactly halfway between 1 and 2. So when we will approximate the mass, so approximate mass in this case will be equal to the bigger number, because it is exactly halfway between the two numbers. So I will say approximate mass is equal to 2 kg. Now the second rule is, if the pointer of the mass scale points before halfway between two numbers, then approximate mass will be equal to the smaller number. Let's take an example. For example, we have here the number 0 and 1. Now halfway between 0 and 1 will be 1 over 2. So let's suppose the pointer is somewhere before 1 over 2, somewhere here or here, anywhere before 1 over 2. So the approximate mass will be equal to 0 kg. So I can say the approximate mass will be equal to 0 kg. Now let's suppose we have the number 1 and 2. Now halfway between 1 and 2 will be 1 and half. And if the pointer of the scale points anywhere before this number, like before 1, 1 and half, anywhere before that, so it will approximate to the smaller number. So I can say approximate mass will be equal to 1 kg. So once again, the rule you can read: if the pointer of the mass scale points before halfway between two numbers, then approximate mass will be equal to the smaller number. Here are the two examples that you can see. Now once again look at this mass scale. This mass scale is pointing at this time to 2 kg, so I can say the mass is 2 kg. But let's suppose if it will point before halfway between 1 and 2, because we are having this number 1 kg and 2 kg. So halfway between them is this 1.5 kg, or we can say write it in another way, 1 and half. Now let's suppose the mass scale is anywhere here between 1 and 1.5, before this 1 and 1.5. So it may be here, it may be here, anywhere before the halfway, anywhere before the halfway. So we will say the approximate mass will be 1 kg. So if this is the case where we have the mass pointer of the mass scale before halfway, so we will say that the approximate mass is equal to approximate mass is equal to 1 kg. Rule 3 is, if the pointer of the mass scale is after the halfway between two numbers, then mass will approximate to the bigger number. For example, if I take two numbers 0 and 1, then halfway between these two numbers will be at 1 over 2, and if we have 3/4, 3/4 will be after halfway, or anywhere here after halfway between the number. We will say the pointer is pointing after halfway between two numbers. Then in that case, approximate mass will be approximate mass will be 1 kg, and it will go to the bigger number. If for example I have the number 1 and 2, then the halfway between 1 and 2 will be equal to 1 and half. So if the pointer of the mass scale is anywhere, maybe at 1/3 or somewhere else after the halfway between the numbers, then we will say the approximate mass will go to the bigger number. So approximate mass will go to the bigger number, and will be equal to 2 kg. Once again, have a look at this mass scale where the pointer is pointing to 2 kg. So in this case, we don't have any need to approximate the mass. But in the case if it is somewhere else, not exactly on the number, then we need to approximate the mass. So let's suppose it is after the halfway. Now the halfway is here. This is 1.5. That can be written in another way to write 1.5 is 1, 1 and half. So if it is after the halfway, anywhere here, it might be here, here, or here, after the halfway between the numbers, then we will say the approximate mass will go to the bigger number, and the bigger number here in this case is equal to 2 kg. So I will say approximate mass. So approximate mass in this case will be equal to 2 kg. So we discuss all the three rules. I will just let you go through all the three rules once again. Here you can note down in your notebooks the first rule. that if the pointer of the mass scale is halfway between the two numbers, then approximate mass will be equal to the bigger number. If it is exactly on the half number, then it will go to the bigger number. Then here is the third rule. If the pointer of the mass scale points before halfway between two numbers, then approximate mass will be equal to the smaller number. And here we took these two examples. Then here is the third rule, where if the pointer of the mass scale is after the halfway between two numbers, then mass will approximate to the bigger number. And here we did some examples. And in each case, you have seen this picture where we discussed that if the pointer is pointing somewhere here on the halfway, then it will go to the bigger number. If the pointer points somewhere before the halfway, then it will go to the smaller number. And if the pointer points somewhere after the halfway,